Well, hello everybody. Today I'm going to read you the second part of what I read last time from the book of JASHER, or my book, JASHER Insights, chapter 4. I'm just going to continue basically where I got to, following on from the life of Enoch and what happened after he died as the pre-Diluvian world descended into anarchy, darkness, lawlessness, great perversion. And I'll just continue the chapter, except I'll read you a lot more of my comments directly from the book itself, so you can get an idea. And the reason why I dig up these apocryphal books is because not only were they in the King James Bible until 1885, but they also add a lot of very interesting details to many stories in the Bible. And they also act as a parallel to show us, like Jesus said, when I come back, will I find faith on the earth? A very strong statement by Jesus. And unfortunately our world is descending into darkness again, just like in pre-flood times. It's pretty similar. Not exactly the same, but spiritually it certainly is very dark at the moment. For those who've got their eyes open, you can see it. It's very clear now. It's right in your face. So this description from pre-flood times is what's happening again now in modern times. And that which was physical in pre-flood times is more in the spirit realm in modern times. But that doesn't mean to say it'll stay just in the spiritual realm. That's why the importance of these books, and also my books on the paranormal, like Out of the Bottomless Pit 1 and 2, and all my Insights book, there is so much truth in these ancient apocryphal books that gives great knowledge and wisdom. So without further ado, this is where I got to. This is so Enoch had died, or I always say that in a wrong way. Enoch had been translated, gone up to heaven in a chariot drawn by fiery horses. What a way to go, huh? So here is from my book, JASHER Insights, Book 1, Chapter 4, verse 16. And all the sons of men departed from the ways of the Lord in those days. This is about 200 years after Enoch had been translated. As they multiplied upon the face of the earth with sons and daughters, and they taught one another their evil practices, and they continued sinning against the Lord. As I said here, within 200 years of the death of Enoch, mankind, led by the fallen angels and their offspring, the giants, got into ever-increasing perversions, copulating with animals, other creatures, and projecting Nephilim DNA into animals and birds and reptiles to create all kinds of giants, hybrids, chimeras, and monsters. See the Book of Giants. Yeah, you can find that on YouTube. Verse 17. And every man made unto himself a god, and they robbed and plundered every man his neighbor, as well as his relative, and they corrupted the earth, and the earth was filled with violence. Isn't that how the world is today? Comment 9. This last verse is a perfect description of Cain. Every man made unto himself a god, and he robbed and plundered every man his neighbor, as well as his relative, and he corrupted the earth, and the earth was filled with violence. Cain was the first human being born on the earth to a woman, and who probably was the very first seed of Satan on the earth. The violence sown by Satan into the very first murderer, Cain, was then continued by the influence of the fallen angels or watchers in the days of Jared, Enoch's father, in around 500 to 600 years after creation. God, through the influence of Enoch, for 243 years, and Methuselah, his son, another 200 years after that, were able to keep at bay the negative influence of the fallen angels, or for about 443 years altogether. They kept the darkness at bay, in the form of the fallen angels and their sons, the giants, and all their influence. What today we'd call the negative spirit world, or Satan and his fallen angels and demons and devils. Finally, it was as if, so then, they had to face these things physically, face to face, with these shape-shifting creatures, fallen angels. And we don't know all the powers that giants their sons had either. They might have had a lot of the powers of their fathers too. Finally, it was as if all the good disappeared for a season or was hidden away, whilst evil went on the rampage for around the next 500 years. That's the 500 years before the flood. As there was no longer any restraints against the evil until God's great judgment of the flood of Noah. 1 John 3:12, not as Cain, who was of that wicked one. Sounds like it's saying he's the son of the devil, son of Satan, and slew his brother. Wherefore slew he him? Because his own works were evil and his brother's righteous. John 8:44, ye are of your father the devil, and the lusts of your father ye will do. He was a murderer from the beginning. Abode not in the truth, because there's no truth in him. When he speaks a lie, he speaks of his own, for he is a liar and the father of it. Comment 10. As I had mentioned before, it is so clear that just as the fallen angels started having sexual intercourse, if you can call it that, more like rape I think, with the beautiful women on the earth, so Satan most likely deceived Eve by disguising himself as Adam, thus fathered the first human being. I think this is very likely to be true, as there's nothing ever good said about Cain according to the Jewish historian Josephus, writing about Cain in the 1st century AD. There you can see more in the appendix of this book. Here's a verse I did mention yesterday. Yeah, so I won't read that. I'll go on from here. And here's where the next thing I talk about. In the book of Jubilees, it describes many different types of giants, each one much taller than the other class. The biggest ones devour the ones somewhat less tall than themselves, and they in turn devour the giants smaller than themselves, and the smallest giants devour mankind. Verse 19. And the Lord said, I will blot out man that I have created from the face of the earth, yea, from man to the birds of the air, together with the cattle and the beasts in the field, for I repent that I made them. Comment 16. The women who had sex with the fallen angels started having children who became giants and were of old time men of renown, or very famous characters, gods. Later in time, after the great flood, the same thing started happening again, and the offspring of women fallen angels were known to us as demigods in ancient mythology. Genesis 6:4. There were giants in the earth in those days. Also after that, when the sons of God came into the daughters of men, and they bare children to them, and the same became mighty men, which were of old, men of 17. The book of Enoch, chapter 10, verse 9, explains how that God told his angels, in heaven that is, to provoke the races of giants to fight the one against the other, and the end result was a terrible super war, well before the great flood, and followed eventually by the worldwide judgment of God in the great flood of Noah's time. What's very important to note is that because the giants were very intelligent and malignant, and indeed had an intelligence inherited from the fallen angels, then in the time period from the death of Enoch in around 1,000 years after creation until the great flood, 1656 after creation, there was plenty of time for the giants to build a very advanced technology. Think how far modern man has advanced in the past 150 years only. Imagine how the descendants of the fallen angels could have advanced in 500 years before being destroyed by the civil wars or the final great flood. For more on this topic, see Advanced Technology, Tesla. Yeah, you can see that on my website. outthebottomlesspit.co.uk. And also see massive cyclopean buildings from pre-flood times. It's also my website. Paragraph 20. No, yeah. And all men who walked in the ways of the Lord died in those days, before the Lord brought the evil upon man which he had declared. For this was from the Lord, they should not see the evil which the Lord spoke of concerning the sons of men. And Noah found grace in the sight of the Lord, and the Lord chose him and his children to raise up seed from them from the face of the whole earth. Comment 18. I think that the book of Jubilees gives a secret away by stating there were 3 or 4 different levels of giants. Imagine having giants that are 15, 20 feet high, then you've got others that's like 35 feet high, then you've got some that's like 60 feet high and some is 100 feet high. Imagine living in a world like that back in pre-flood times. Not to mention all the other chimeras and strange things wandering around. Must have been a terrible time to be in, especially in the last 500 years before the flood. Wow. So they had these different levels of giants. And that description, by the way, was talking about after the flood. So you can be sure that the giants before the Great Flood were much bigger and taller than those described after the Great Flood. Interesting. How did the giants get back after the flood? That's a good question. Jubilees 7:22. And he begat sons, the Nephilim, and they were all unalike. Actually, that's a mistake. They should be called Rephaim. The giants are the Rephaim, the fallen angels are the Nephilim. People confuse those two names, as I did there. And they begat sons, the Rephaim, and they were all unalike. And they devoured one another. The giants slew the Nephil, and the Nephil slew the Elio, and the Elio mankind, and one man another. And these giants were of distinct different heights. You not notice now in modern times, and this is me saying this now, how they're getting now into cannibalism. Where are they getting that spirit from? That comes from the giants, or the demons, devils. You bet it does. And I'll say again, the giants before the flood, they became the disembodied spirits of the giants, which became the demons, devils, after the flood. As it shows clearly in the book of Jubilees. Jubilees 7:22. Right, so these giants were of distinct different heights. Why? Comment 19. Why have archaeologists found human skeletons from 9 to 12 feet, some 24 feet, some 35 feet, and some 45 feet high? And I think these skeletons are most of the ones found from after the flood. So presumably before the flood they were much bigger. The skeleton that was found was 70 feet high, 75 feet high. According to the book of Enoch, before the Great Flood, there were some giants much taller, and up to an incredible 450 feet high. They surely must have been the Titans. Apart from the different classes of giants, there were also intelligent monsters, which were hybrid creatures. See the book of Giants. Fallen angels and hybrid giants. Comment 20. One of the weaknesses of human beings, as far as the fallen angels could ascertain, was they stopped growing normally at around 18 years of age. Of course, before the Great Flood, people didn't live to be only 70, 80 years old, but up to 900 plus. So before the Great Flood, people kept growing for perhaps 100 years. There's evidence that Noah and his wife, who were born before the Great Flood, were 12 feet tall. This information was devised from the size of the tombs of Noah and his wife. See giants' elongated skulls from my website, outthebottomlesspit.co.uk. Point 21. We know from the scriptures, from what we have learned about events back then, that the fallen angels increasingly in later generations, close to the Great Flood, started mixing their DNA, not only with human women, but also started with animals, birds, beasts, and reptiles. Some even say insects. How was that done? Well, you have to understand that the fallen angels are shapeshifters. They can change their form. We know that 200 angels fell initially, but later, after the death of Enoch, in 987 years after creation, within a few hundred years of Enoch's death until the Great Flood in 1656, millions more angels fell, and this time seduced by willing, beautiful women. These fallen angels and their sons, the giants, became more and more perverse in their behavior. God had told his angels to provoke the giants to fight against each other until an end was made of them. It is also stated the fallen angels delighted in their sons, the giants, or otherwise in latter times or post-flood times known as demigods. Now here's an interesting thing, this one I'm sure a lot of you heard about, reptilian races. What does that mean? It just means a race of humans which are devised from a snake. It has snake DNA. Most of us heard of reptilian races somewhere. We have heard about them living deep down inside the earth in caverns or much deeper down inside a hollow earth. Are they real? And if so, what was their origin? You can also see the hollow earth on my website, which is outthebottomlesspit.co.uk. Comment 24. How did reptilian races come into being? I believe it very likely the reptilian race came into being because the fallen angels who fell closer to the Great Flood wanted to have sons that were even bigger, giants, than the first incursion of giants, in the hope they wouldn't get annihilated in battles with other giants. Perhaps this is how the exceptional and infamous Titans came into being. What is unique about reptiles? Comment 24. Well, they never stop growing. This made the reptiles a perfect candidate for making bigger hybrids if the fallen angels could splice their DNA into a human embryo. I believe the fallen angels did somehow manage to mix the DNA of reptiles with human fetuses, thus created a hybrid that simply didn't stop growing. Even as it is at the age of puberty in humans, when growth hormone really starts to kick in, boys suddenly shoot up to a height at around 13 to 14 years of age. Comment 26. Did giants grow higher in stages? Hypothesis. Is my idea, of course. What if after every so many years the giants, because they had some reptilian blood, started growing higher for a season, and after many more years the reptilian growth hormone would kick in again and they would sprout even higher? And this would explain how many different classes of giants are mentioned, with each type distinctly much higher than the next type. This phenomenon is unique, as normally it only happens in reptiles. But in the case of reptiles, the growth is uniform. In human reptilian hybrids, it is very light in spurts every so many years. In pre-flood times, it could have been every 50 to 100 years or so. Basically, the longer the giant lived, the taller and bigger he grew. And that is what it would appear across human DNA with reptilian DNA. Of course, that's my hypothesis. Difficult to prove something like that. Just an idea. How come we have different levels of giants according to the Book of Jubilees and other books? Why are they distinct different levels or height? Jubilees 10:5. For these are malignant and created to destroy. 2 Peter 2:12. But these as natural brute beasts made to be taken and destroyed. Almost identical. Jubilees 10:2. And the sons of Noah came to Noah and told him concerning the demons, disembodied spirits of slain giants, which were leading astray and blinding and slaying his sons' sons. This is after the Great Flood. So those same evil spirits that were the giants came back as demons, started blinding Noah's sons and killing them. Enoch 15:8. And these spirits shall arise up against the children of men and women, because they proceeded from them. Comment 27. If the above hypothesis is correct, when I mentioned there about how the giants got to be different heights, then that could also explain why the giants developed strange eating disorders. When the giant's body started growing higher, he would need a lot of food and quickly. The normal food of mankind was insufficient, so the giants started eating the humans and other giants to satiate their extreme hunger and growth. How awful. Carnivorous, monstrous giants. Carnivorous dinosaurs. How were they created? Comment 28. Another very important question is, how did ferocious meat-eating dinosaurs come into existence in a time when God himself had only created animals to be herbivores and humans to be vegetarians, at least in the time before the Great Flood? I think it's very likely the fallen angels, in their complete rebellion against God, descended in complete madness and insanity and ended up just as wacko as Satan. Satan inspired the fallen angels to create hybrids from reptiles that would grow much bigger than lizards and crocodiles and mutate them into creatures like T-Rex and heinous creatures such as velociraptors and flying dinosaurs such as pterodactyls, not to mention sea monsters. See Dragons and Dinosaurs on my website, again, outthebottomlesspit.co.uk. Wow. Now there's a very scary thought. In the book of Revelation it talks about the final bloody battle of Armageddon, chapter 19. We're told that an angel talks to the fowls of the heavens and invites them to come to a grisly feast. Revelation 19, 17, 18. And I saw an angel standing in the sun, and he cried with a loud voice, saying to the fowls that fly in the midst of the heaven, Come and gather yourselves together unto the supper of the great God. They may eat the flesh of kings, and the flesh of captains, flesh of mighty men, and the flesh of horses, of them that sit on them, and the flesh of all men, both free and bond, both small and great. Comment 30. Now let's examine the situation for a minute. We have perhaps 200 million soldiers slaughtered at the Battle of Armageddon. And somebody's mentioned it's like a river of blood, 200 miles long, and as deep as a horse's bridle. You can just imagine how many people being killed, 200 million. Would it actually be conceivable that normal birds in the heavens could possibly do the job of being scavengers and devouring 200 million human bodies? Yeah, I worked it out. Mathematics, it's not possible. This bird's not big enough. I think that here it is talking about the return of much bigger creatures, such as pterodactyls. According to Revelation, many strange hybrid creatures are released from the bottomless pit during the Great Tribulation. In Revelation chapter 6, it states the following. Revelation 6, 7 and 8. And when he opened the fourth seal, I heard the voice of the fourth beast say, Come and see. And I looked, and behold, a pale horse, and his name that sat on him was Death, and hell followed with him. Killed with the sword, and with hunger, with death, and with the beasts of the earth. What beasts? What kind of beasts are you talking about? A quarter of the population? Dead? Comment 31. Why does it state that a quarter of the earth's population was killed by the beasts of the earth? What beasts? There are no beasts, at least not to my knowledge, that are going around devouring millions of people, at least not yet. So what is this important verse concerning the last days of mankind and the earth actually talking about? Comment 32. Could the giants and the monsters actually come back? Transhumanism. Because of the transhumanism movement, there are many people out there tinkering with trying to create hybrids in modern times. Probably, and so far, most of the hybrids have died in the early stages of life, in fact on the cellular level. What if genetic engineering becomes even more advanced and eventually monsters are created? You probably wonder, why would any scientist or rational person in their right mind even think to try to create such things? Well, I asked that question to a politician one time, and he said, if they can do it, then somebody will do it. Just a matter of time, until the door is open one way or the other for the hybrid creatures to return. Or they could come through portals from the netherworlds, of course. God help us all when that day arrives. See Transhumanism on my website. And here finally for this chapter, comment 33. CERN particle collider. Another possible way for the giants to return is to create a portal through which they could come. As at present, the demons are known as the disembodied spirits of the giants, and they're trapped in a lower dimension. Those crazy scientists at CERN, with all their atom smashing, are actually trying to do what we certainly don't want to happen, and that is to open up portals for these giants and other hybrids of the past, including monsters, to return to the surface of the earth. This is not fantasy. Look up CERN and what their insane intentions are. Yeah, you can see CERN on my website. And that is the end of chapter 4 from my book, JASHER Insights. As you can see, they've got a lot of material in it. I just read some of it today. But do get my Insights books. JASHER Insights Book 1 and 2. The book of JASHER, the original Hebrew book of JASHER, is incredible. The stories in it are incredible, supernatural, out of this world in many ways. They're some of my favorites. So you can get JASHER Insights. You can either get it from me, Steve, at stephenph.strutt, STRUTT, at btinternet.com, or from Amazon. I have out 7 Insights books, including ENOCH Insights, EZDRAS Insights, which I've just made a new edition of, by the way, which is much bigger because it includes first and second EZDRAS and a whole panorama of history, Bible history. And that's the new book's coming out this year. It'll probably be the biggest book yet, the new one I'm working on. Still working on it. But I do suggest you get these first 7 Insights books, and also get my 2 paranormal supernatural books, Out of the Bottomless Pit 1 and 2. Well, thanks for listening. Bye for now. Here we go.